Speaking of the nation's capital, I'm not sure if you're familiar with what's going on in Texas right now. There's a pretty much a standoff between Governor Greg Abbott, who's the governor of Texas. He's telling the federal government or defying a Supreme Court order to shut the border. He wants to shut the border because all the illegal immigrants are coming into his state, and the federal government, Biden administration, they want to keep it open. Just last year, the U.S. had the highest illegal immigration in history with 3.2 million encounters at the border. That's an insane amount of people to just come into the country.
It is.
Because it's not just illegal immigrants from Mexico or South America. They're finding, Middle Eastern. They're finding, so what I'm saying is it's potential bad actors that are coming in through the border.
Correct.
What's your take on that? What do you see? What do you think is happening overall?
My take on the migrant crisis is similar to my take on Barack Obama's presidency. Barack Obama's presidency did not signal the end to white supremacy in America. It signaled a reinvention to white supremacy in America. If you are a politically astute Caucasian, you know that. You were not threatened by Barack Obama being president because you knew he was nothing but a puppet for the white power structure. But if you were a politically uneducated Caucasian, you might think Barack Obama being in the White House is a taking over of federal power by Black America. The same thing with the migrants. The migrants are being allowed into the country, and for two important reasons, and there's several, but there's two very important ones. Voting is one. And attached to that voting is the replacement of Black America at the ballot box. Joe Biden knew he wasn't going to do anything for Black people. And if you go back to his original campaign when he was elected the first term, he said he wanted to fast track to American citizenship 4 to 8 million undocumented immigrants. Why is he making this promise before he even gets into the White House? Because he knew he was going to do nothing for Black people. So if I'm not going to do anything for Black people, they're not going to vote for me. How does the Democratic Party make up for the dwindling Black vote? We're going to bring the immigrants in, turn them into citizens, give them the right to vote. Thereby, we reduce our dependency on the Black vote on election day. I saw this coming. I spoke on it. Black America didn't believe me, and now they're living it. So the immigrants are being allowed to come in to replace us literally, metaphorically, physically, and every other way. You look at what they're doing in New York City. You look at what they're doing in Chicago. I'm always in New York. I just came from Chicago. They are literally giving these migrants Black people's resources, from food stamps to housing to jobs to clothing, you name it. Taxpayers are not getting what they pay for, but folks who never paid tax a day in their life, nor whose ancestors built this country, are being completely ignored. It's the takeover. And the reason they're choosing New York and Chicago as the most aggressive migrant replacement efforts is because those are the two strongest Black political cities that we have. If you take New York, you take Chicago, you take Black America, the rest of us are easy. But as I travel America, guess what? There's migrant camps in nearly every Black community I'm coming across. I was in Kansas City. They got a migrant camp. Philadelphia has a burgeoning one. I just came from Antioch. They have one. Sacramento, they have one. They're popping up all over the place where Black people are because they're going to be the new minorities once America gets rid of us. The second reason they're letting the migrants in is to keep big businesses in America.
Cheap labor.
Absolutely. Cheap labor. Cheap labor. Because what the corporations is telling the government, if I have to stay here, I got to pay for all kinds of labor insurance. If somebody gets pregnant, they get off. If they have a mental health problem, they get off. I got to pay them. It costs me too much to operate a business in America. If you want me to stay, you better bring some of them brown people from across that border and let me pay them pennies on a dollar under the table. And the reason they love the brown people instead of the Black people is because we are an obligation to America. We built it. We built it. So we're an obligation. We're the nuisance that they don't want. But when brown people show up, their ancestors didn't build this country. They come into a place better than the place that they're leaving. They will keep their mouth shut. They will not agitate. They will never become a political problem because they feel it is a blessing just to be here.
Brother, they're literally spending millions of dollars to house these people.
Yes.
And like millions. And why do they feel like that's the best use of the resources?
Because we fail to recognize that capitalism isn't the white man's priority in America. It is racism and white supremacy. There is no amount of money America will not pay to rid itself of the unwanted Negro. People say, look at all the money they spend to keep us in prison. They can spend a third of that and improve the schools. You don't get it. This is not a money game. This is an extermination game. Whatever they must do to get rid of black people, they will do it. You know what the American dream is? The American dream is not a big house and a big car and a big bank account. The American dream is to wake up and walk outside and not see a single black person anywhere in sight. That's the American dream.
I talked to some people prepping for this interview, and these are non-blacks. Mm-hmm. I said, what do you think about Dr. Umar? He says, oh, that's the guy that preaches the victim mentality. and based on what you're saying, mm-hmm. I went to Morgan State, so I completely understand the struggle. Understood. But from the outside looking in, they see you, they see what you're saying. They like, you are talking about this group of people who can't help themselves, and we're always being attacked. What's your response to that?
Number one, I've never said we can't help ourselves. To clarify, I'm as far away from the victim mentality argument as you can find, because as a Pan-Africanist, as a Garveyite, we believe in self-determination. That means all of our problems can be solved and will be solved by us alone with no outside help, physical or financial. See, some people are of the mindset that if you blame the power structure for the problem, you must be expecting them to fix it. Nothing could be further from the truth. If you think the U.S. government created all these problems for black people so they can turn around and fix them, you're out of your mind. Yes, they created them problems. We don't control the school system. How can we be at fault for it? We don't control the prison system. How can we be at fault for it? We don't control the criminal justice system. We don't control the economy. If you look at the systems that impact black America the most, we have no control over none of them. So it is crystal clear that our problems were introduced into our community, but it is also crystal clear that the responsibility for solving them is our own, which is why for me, when we have conversations like reparations, although I support reparations because Pan-Africanists gave birth to the reparations movement, it can also become a distraction because once again, you're in a situation where you're waiting for the government to jumpstart your solutions process.
I forgot about reparations a long time ago, man.
You see?
That's not happening.
Well, it can happen, but here's the problem.
The money's not going to be worth nothing by the time it gets
Absolutely. The money, you're right on the money, which means that whatever we are demanding for reparations should not include cash. And if you're going to put cash on the list of reparations demands, it should not be at the top. Why? Because the benefit that America receives for the enslavement of our ancestors will never expire. As long as there's an America, there's a benefit that came from slavery. Most of your banks, most of your insurance companies were birthed through slavery. So there's no such thing as an America that doesn't benefit from the enslavement of African people, although we're nearly 160 years out. So whatever we demand, whatever we are receiving for compensation, should likely be things that never expire. You're talking land, you're talking resources, you're talking control of industries, you're talking exclusive rights over your inventions, your music, your art. That's what we should be talking about, not money. But because our people are so financially illiterate, that is working against the reparations package being of any benefit to us, because you have financially illiterate people talking about what should I get for the enslavement of our ancestors, failing to recognize that if they give you paper money, which is a promissory note, no mineral value whatsoever, they can cut the price in half through inflation almost overnight. And you better understand this, because America is based on white supremacy, whatever they give to African people, there's going to have to be some sort of a counter package for white America as well, so you maintain white privilege.